She found a terrified boy hiding in the rain and brought him home to keep him safe. What she didn't know, he was the son of the city's most dangerous mafia boss. And now, both their lives would never be the same. The diner's back door slammed shut behind Nora, and the rain hit her like 1,000 frozen needles. She should have grabbed her jacket. But after 8 hours of coffee spills, burnt toast, and customers who tipped in loose change, all she wanted was to throw out the trash and go home to Lily. Her daughter would be asleep by now, curled up at Mrs. Chen's apartment upstairs, dreaming of things 6-year-olds dreamed about. Ponies, maybe, or birthday cake. Nora hoisted the garbage bag toward the dumpster, her sneakers squelching through puddles that reflected the flickering neon sign. Rosie's Diner. Open 24 hours. The alley stank of old grease and wet concrete. She was about to toss the bag when she heard it. A whimper. Soft. Scared. Almost swallowed by the storm. Nora froze, her pulse quickening. Hello. Nothing. Just rain drumming against metal and the distant wail of sirens. She should walk away. This neighborhood wasn't the kind where you investigated strange sounds in dark alleys. But something in that sound, something raw and broken, made her feet move before her brain could stop them. Is someone there? Behind the dumpster, wedged between the filthy brick wall and a pile of flattened cardboard boxes, was a boy. He couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old. His dark hair was plastered to his forehead, his clothes soaked through, and his arms wrapped around a small blue backpack like it was the only thing keeping him alive. When he looked up at her, his eyes were wide with terror. Hey, sweetheart, Nora said softly, crouching down despite the dirty water seeping through her jeans. Are you okay? Are you hurt? The boy shook his head, but he was shaking so hard, she couldn't tell if it was from cold or fear. Probably both. Where are your parents? His face crumpled. They'll find me. Who will? They'll find me. His voice cracked, and he pressed himself harder against the wall, like he was trying to disappear into it. Nora's heart twisted. She'd seen that look before, in the mirror, years ago, when she'd packed everything she owned into 2 suitcases and left her ex-husband in the middle of the night. The look of someone who knew what it meant to run. Okay, she said gently. Okay. Nobody's going to find you. Not tonight. She should call the police. That was the right thing to do. The smart thing. But something stopped her. Maybe the way he flinched when she reached for her phone, or the desperation in his eyes that screamed, please don't. Listen, Nora said, making a decision she'd probably regret. I live 5 blocks from here. It's warm. It's safe. You can dry off, get something to eat, and we'll figure this out in the morning. Deal? The boy stared at her for a long moment, weighing his options. Finally, he nodded. Nora's apartment was a cramped 2-bedroom on the 4th floor of a building that should have been condemned a decade ago. The elevator hadn't worked since 2019, and the hallway always smelled like someone's burnt dinner. But it was home. She unlocked the door as quietly as possible, praying Mrs. Chen had already brought Lily back and put her to bed. The last thing she needed was her daughter waking up and asking a million questions about the drowned boy standing in their living room. Wait here, Nora whispered, pointing to the worn couch. I'll get you a towel. When she came back with the fluffiest towel she owned, which wasn't saying much, and a pair of Lily's old pajamas that might actually fit, the boy was exactly where she'd left him, dripping onto the hardwood floor and clutching that backpack like his life depended on it. What's your name? Nora asked, handing him the towel. The boy hesitated.
Ellie. Ellie.
I'm Nora, she smiled, trying to look as non-threatening as possible. You can change in the bathroom, first door on the left. There's a space heater in there. Take your time. While Eli was in the bathroom, Nora made hot chocolate, the instant kind from a packet, but she added extra marshmallows because kids liked that. Her hands were shaking. What was she doing?
She didn't know this boy.
He could be dangerous. His parents could be dangerous. The people looking for him could be. The bathroom door opened, and Eli shuffled out wearing Lily's old dinosaur pajamas that were slightly too small. He looked younger somehow, more fragile. Here, Nora handed him the mug. Careful, it's hot. Eli took it with both hands and sipped carefully. For a few minutes, neither of them spoke. Nora sat in the armchair across from him, studying his face. He had delicate features, dark eyes that seemed too old for his age, and a small scar above his left eyebrow. Eli, she said finally, I need to know, are you in danger? He stared into his hot chocolate. Yes. From who? Everyone. Nora felt a chill that had nothing to do with her wet clothes. Your parents. My mom is dead. His voice was flat, emotionless. And my dad. My dad is the reason people want to hurt me. Before Nora could respond, a small voice came from the hallway. Mommy? Lily stood in her bedroom doorway, rubbing her eyes, her stuffed rabbit dangling from one hand. She looked at Eli, then at Nora, then back at Eli. Who's that? Nora's mind raced. This is Eli, sweetie. He's going to stay with us tonight. Is that okay? Lily considered this with the seriousness only a 6-year-old could muster. Then she walked over to Eli and held out her rabbit. You look sad, she said simply. Mr. Hoppy helps when I'm sad. Eli took the rabbit carefully, like it was made of glass. For the first time since Nora had found him, something in his face softened. Thank you, he whispered. Lily beamed. Do you want to see my room? I have glow-in-the-dark stars. And just like that, Nora watched her daughter lead this strange, terrified boy down the hallway, chattering about constellations and her favorite bedtime stories. Nora slumped back in her chair and closed her eyes. What had she just brought into their lives? Outside, the rain continued to fall. And somewhere in the city, she had the sinking feeling that someone was looking for the boy sleeping in her daughter's room. By morning, she'd realized she was right. Nora woke to sunlight streaming through her bedroom window and the smell of burnt toast. She bolted upright, heart pounding. Lily wasn't allowed to use the toaster unsupervised. She threw off her blanket and rushed to the kitchen, only to find both children sitting at the small table, eating cereal. Eli had attempted toast, evidenced by the blackened bread in the sink, but had apparently given up. Morning, Mommy, Lily chirped, milk dribbling down her chin. Eli looked up, his eyes still carrying yesterday's fear but softer now. I'm sorry about the toast. Nora exhaled, her panic deflating. It's okay. Cereal's better anyway. As she poured herself coffee, the cheap stuff that tasted like dirt but had enough caffeine to jumpstart her brain, reality crashed back in. She had a strange child in her apartment. A child who was running from something. Or someone. She needed to take him to the police. That was the plan. They'd figure out where he belonged, who was looking for him, and she could go back to her normal life of double shifts and overdue bills. Eli, Nora said gently, sitting down across from him. After breakfast, we're going to go somewhere that can help you. Okay. His spoon clattered into his bowl.
No. Please.
They'll find me if you do that. The police can protect. You don't understand, his voice dropped to a whisper. My dad's men have people everywhere, even in the police. Nora's stomach twisted. What kind of father had men? Before she could press further, her phone buzzed. A text from Marla, her coworker. Girl, turn on the news.
Now.
Nora grabbed the remote and flicked on the small TV mounted above the fridge. The morning news was showing a press conference. A man in an expensive suit stood at a podium, flanked by 2 stone-faced individuals who screamed security. Asking anyone with information about my son's whereabouts to please come forward, the man was saying. His voice was controlled, but Nora could hear the razor's edge beneath it. Elias Moretti was taken from his home 3 nights ago. He's 8 years old.
He needs his medication.
He needs his family. The screen cut to a photo. Nora's coffee mug slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. The boy in the photo was Eli. Her Eli. Sitting at her kitchen table in dinosaur pajamas. The Moretti family is offering a substantial reward for information leading to Elias's safe return, the reporter continued. Adrien Moretti, known businessman and alleged organized crime figure, made an emotional plea this morning. Nora muted the TV, her mind reeling. Moretti.
She knew that name.
Everyone in the city knew that name. The Morettis controlled half the docks, laundered money through legitimate businesses, and had connections that went all the way to City Hall. She looked at Eli, who was staring at his cereal like it held all the answers to the universe. Your father is Adrien Moretti, Nora said slowly. The Adrien Moretti.
Eli not dead miserably.
And you ran away from him. I didn't run away, Eli's hands clenched into fists. They took me. Bad men. They kept me in a dark room for 2 days, but I escaped when one of them fell asleep. I've been hiding ever since. Nora's blood ran cold. Eli, if you were kidnapped, we need to. A car door slammed outside. Then another. Then another. Nora moved to the window and peered through the blinds. Her heart stopped. 3 black SUVs were parked along her street. Men in dark suits were fanning out, showing something, probably a photo, to her neighbors. Mrs. Chun was shaking her head, pointing in different directions. But Mr. Kowalski from 3B was looking up at Nora's building.
No, not abriated.
They found me. Eli's voice was hollow. I told you they would. Lily, oblivious to the danger, was making her stuffed rabbit dance across the table. Nora's maternal instinct kicked into overdrive. She grabbed her daughter's hand, then Eli's. We're leaving.
Right now.
Back door. Move. But Mommy, I haven't finished my... Now, Lily. Nora snatched Eli's blue backpack from the couch and herded both children toward the apartment's back entrance that led to the fire escape. Her hands shook as she unlocked the door. Behind her, she heard heavy footsteps in the hallway. Someone was checking apartments. They were out of time. Go, 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 Nora whispered, practically pushing the kids onto the rusted fire escape. The metal groaned under their weight as they descended. Nora didn't dare look up to see if anyone had spotted them. They hit the alley at a run. Nora knew these streets. She'd lived here for 3 years. She pulled the children through a maze of back streets, cutting through a bodega's storage area, then behind a laundromat. Lily was crying now, confused and scared. Eli was silent, his face pale. Finally, they reached Marla's apartment complex on the other side of the district. Nora hammered on the door until her friend opened it, still in her bathrobe. What the hell? We need to hide.
Please, Marla.
Don't ask questions. Just, please. Marla took one look at Nora's face and stepped aside. Get in. Once inside, Nora collapsed onto Marla's couch, Lily crawling into her lap. Eli stood by the window, peering through the curtains at the street below. We're safe, Nora said, more to convince herself than anyone else. We're safe now. But even as she said it, she remembered the backpack. While the children dozed on Marla's couch hours later, Nora finally opened it. Inside, she found exactly what Eli had said. Bundles of cash, a burner phone with no contacts saved, and a small silver locket. With trembling fingers, she opened the locket. Inside was a photo of a man with Eli's eyes and a woman with a gentle smile. On the back, engraved in tiny letters, Isabella and Adrien, forever. Nora's blood turned to ice as she realized the full weight of what she'd done. She hadn't just saved a lost boy. She'd stolen the son of the most dangerous man in the city. 2 days passed in Marla's cramped apartment like 2 years. Nora barely slept. Every car engine, every footstep in the hallway, every siren in the distance made her jump. Marla had been patient, bringing food, letting Lily play with her old makeup, not asking too many questions. But Nora could see the worry growing in her friend's eyes. You can't stay here forever, Marla said on the second night, after the kids had finally fallen asleep. Whoever's looking for that boy. Nora, they're going to find him eventually. I know, Nora's voice was hollow. I just don't know what to do. She tried calling the police anonymously, but hung up before anyone answered. Eli's words kept echoing in her head. My dad's men have people everywhere. On the third morning, Nora made a decision. She couldn't run forever. She couldn't live in fear, dragging Lily through this nightmare. She had to go back to her apartment, face whatever came, and pray she could explain her way out of this mess. "We're going home," she told Eli over breakfast. His face went white. "You're giving me back to him?"
No.
"I'm going to talk to him. Make him understand that I was trying to help you, not hurt you." "He won't believe you," Eli's voice was flat. "He doesn't believe anyone." But Nora was out of options. The walk back to her building felt like walking to her own execution. Lily held her hand, asking why they couldn't stay at Aunt Marla's longer. Eli trailed behind them, silent as a ghost. When they turned onto her street, Nora's apartment building looked exactly the same as always. The same cracked steps, the same graffiti on the mailboxes, the same broken elevator sign. For a moment, she let herself believe everything might be okay. Then she opened the door to her apartment and saw him. Adrien Moretti sat in her armchair, the same chair she'd sat in 3 nights ago, watching Eli drink hot chocolate. But where Eli had been small and frightened, his father was all sharp angles and controlled power. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than her annual rent, his dark hair was silver at the temples, and his eyes, the same eyes as Eli's, were cold as winter ice. 2 bodyguards flanked him, hands clasped in front of them, expressionless. "Miss Bennet," Adrien said quietly. His voice was smooth, cultured, and absolutely terrifying.
Please. See?
Nora's instinct was to grab the children and run.
But there was nowhere to run to.
She pushed Lily behind her and stood her ground. "I can explain. You kidnapped my son, it wasn't a question. You saw the news coverage, saw the reward, and decided to negotiate your own terms."
No.
"I found him hiding in an alley. He was scared and alone, and I brought him here." Hit him. Adrien's eyes narrowed. "Turned off your phone. Disappeared for 2 days. Do you know how that looks, Miss Bennet? I was protecting him. From me." Something dangerous flashed in Adrien's eyes. "I am his father." He was terrified. Nora shot back, her fear transforming into anger. What kind of father has armed men searching the streets? What kind of father? "Mommy, stop," Lily whimpered, tugging at Nora's shirt. But Eli had gone silent. He stood frozen in the doorway, staring at his father with an expression that made Nora's heart break. Not fear exactly, but something worse. Resignation. Like he'd always known this moment would come. Adrien's eyes found his son. For a fraction of a second, something crossed his face. Relief? Pain? But it vanished so quickly Nora wondered if she'd imagined it. "Elias," he said softly. "Come here." Eli didn't move.
Now, Elias.
That's when Eli did something Nora didn't expect. He ran, not toward his father, but to her. He wrapped his arms around her waist, pressing his face against her side, and for the first time since she'd found him, he cried. "Don't let him take me," Eli sobbed. "Please, Nora. Please." The room went dead silent. Nora looked down at the boy clinging to her, then up at Adrien Moretti. The crime boss's carefully controlled mask had cracked. She saw it clearly now, not anger, but something raw and devastating.
Guilt. Loss.
A father realizing his own son was terrified of him. "Elias," Adrien's voice was strained. "I'm not going to hurt you. You hurt Mom," Eli screamed, his voice breaking. "I saw what you did. I saw the blood." Adrien flinched like he'd been shot. The bodyguards shifted uncomfortably, exchanging glances. This clearly wasn't in the script. "Your mother," Adrien's composure was crumbling. "Elias, that wasn't. I hate you." The words ripped out of Eli like shrapnel. "I hate you, and I wish you died instead of her." The silence that followed was suffocating. Adrien stood slowly, his face carved from stone. But his hands trembled, just slightly, just enough for Nora to see he was human after all. "We're leaving," he said to his men. His voice was hollow.
Now.
"Sir," the boy. I said now. Adrien walked to the door, then stopped. He turned back to Nora, and in his eyes, she saw something that terrified her more than his anger had: defeat. "You have no idea what you've walked into, Miss Bennet," he said quietly. "The people who took my son, they're still out there. And now they know he was here. They know about you, about your daughter." Nora's blood turned to ice. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you've made yourself a target." Adrien's jaw tightened. "Lock your doors. Watch your back. And pray they don't come for you the way they came for my wife." Then he was gone, his bodyguards closing the door behind them with a soft click. Nora sank to the floor, Eli and Lily in her arms, and realized with growing horror that her nightmare wasn't ending. It was just beginning. Nora didn't sleep that night. She dragged the couch in front of the door, checked every window lock 3 times, and kept a kitchen knife within reach. Lily and Eli slept in her bed while she sat in the dark living room, jumping at every sound. Adrien's words played on repeat in her mind. "They know about you, about your daughter." At 2 a.m., her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Her hands shook as she answered. "Hello." Heavy breathing. Then a man's voice, thick with an accent she couldn't place.
"The boy.
"You give him to us. We let you live." The line went dead. Nora's entire body went numb. This was real. This was actually happening. She was about to call Adrien. She'd found his business card tucked under her coffee maker, like he'd left it deliberately, when the power went out. The apartment plunged into darkness. "Mommy?" Lily's voice called from the bedroom. Nora grabbed the knife and ran. "Stay in bed. Don't move. Don't make a sound." She could hear Eli breathing fast, on the edge of panic. "They're here. They found us." "Who's they?" Nora whispered. "The men who took me. The ones with the red snake tattoos." A crash came from the living room, the sound of her door being kicked open. The couch she'd barricaded it with scraped across the floor. "Bedroom.
Now."
"Go," a gruff voice commanded. Nora's mind raced. The fire escape. It was their only chance. She threw open the bedroom window, the rusty hinges screaming. "Eli, you first. Then Lily. I'm right behind you." Eli climbed out, then reached back for Lily. Nora handed her daughter, through just as her bedroom door exploded inward. 2 men in black masks filled the doorway. One held a gun. Nora didn't think. She grabbed the lamp from her nightstand and hurled it at them, then dove through the window. Her shoulder hit the fire escape's metal railing, pain exploding through her arm, but she didn't stop. "Run!" she screamed. They clattered down the fire escape, Lily crying, Eli pulling her along. Behind them, one of the masked men climbed through the window. A gunshot cracked the night. The bullet pinged off the railing inches from Nora's head. They hit the alley running. Nora had no plan, no destination, just away. They sprinted through the maze of back streets, the children's legs pumping, Nora's lungs burning. A black van screeched around the corner, cutting off their path. More masked men poured out. "Dead end," Eli gasped. Nora spun around. The men from her apartment were closing in from behind. They were trapped. "Give us the boy," one of the men said, his voice eerily calm. "Walk away. Forget this happened." "Over my dead body," Nora snarled. The man shrugged. "If you insist." He raised his gun. And then the world exploded. 3 SUVs came out of nowhere, tires screaming, headlights blinding. They boxed in the van, and suddenly men in suits, Adrien's men, were everywhere, guns drawn. "Get down," someone shouted. Nora threw herself over the children as gunfire erupted. It was chaos, shouting, the smell of gunpowder, car alarms wailing. She squeezed her eyes shut and prayed. Then silence. "Miss Bennet." Nora looked up. One of Adrien's bodyguards, the taller one from her apartment, stood over her, holstering his weapon. "You need to come with us."
"Now."
"I'm not going anywhere with. Victor's men will regroup in minutes. You want to be here when they do." Nora didn't know who Victor was, and she didn't care. She scooped up Lily and let the bodyguard guide them to an SUV. Eli climbed in beside her, his face pale. As they pulled away, Nora caught a glimpse of the masked men lying motionless in the alley. She felt sick. The safe house was 40 minutes outside the city, hidden behind tall gates and surrounded by woods. It looked like a millionaire's vacation home, all glass and modern architecture, beautiful and sterile. Adrien was waiting in the foyer. "You're bleeding," he said, looking at Nora's shoulder. She hadn't noticed. Her shirt was dark with blood from where she'd hit the railing.
I've fine.
"You're in shock," Adrien nodded to one of his men. "Get the medic." "I don't want your medic. I want answers." Nora's voice shook with adrenaline and fury. "Who the hell is Victor? Why are people trying to kill us?" Adrien's jaw tightened.
Victor Leoni.
"He runs the East Side operations. He's been trying to destroy my family for years."
Why?
"Because I killed his brother." Adrien said it flatly, without emotion. 10 years ago. It was business. He's been waiting for the right moment to return the favor. Nora felt the room spin. "So, he kidnapped Eli. He wanted me to watch my son die the way he watched his brother die." Adrien's voice dropped to something dangerous. "But Elias escaped. And now Victor knows he failed. Which means he'll try again. Then go to the police." "The police can't protect you from Victor." Adrien stepped closer. "But I can. You and your daughter stay here until this is finished. We're not your prisoners." "No," Adrien said quietly. "You're under my protection, whether you like it or not." Lily tugged Nora's hand.
Mommy, I'm scared.
Nora looked at her daughter's tear-stained face, then at Eli, who'd gone silent again, retreating into himself. She was out of options, out of safe places to run. "Fine," she whispered. "But this isn't over. When this is done, we're gone." Adrien's eyes met hers, dark, unreadable, carrying the weight of violence and regret. "If we survive," he said, "you're free to go." It wasn't reassuring. 3 days in Adrien's safe house felt like living in a gilded cage. The place had everything: a chef, a library, a heated pool, security cameras on every corner. Lily was entertained by the sheer size of it, playing hide-and-seek in rooms bigger than their entire apartment. But Eli grew quieter with each passing day, watching his father from a distance like a wild animal watching a predator. Adrien kept his distance too. He spent most of his time in his office, door closed, speaking in low tones on encrypted phones. When he did emerge, he was polite but cold, asking if they needed anything, then disappearing again. Nora tried to hate him, tried to see only the criminal, the killer, the man whose world had swallowed her whole. But late at night, when she couldn't sleep, she'd seen him standing outside Eli's bedroom door. Just standing there, not going in. His hand would reach for the doorknob, then fall. And he'd walk away, shoulders heavy with something that looked like grief. On the 4th night, Nora couldn't take it anymore. She found Adrien in the library, a glass of whiskey in his hand, staring at a photograph. When he heard her approach, he quickly tucked it away. "Can't sleep?" he asked without looking at her. No one could sleep in this situation. Nora sat in the chair across from him, uninvited. "I need to understand something." "What?" "Eli thinks you killed his mother." Adrien's knuckles went white around his glass. "I know what he thinks. Did you?" He laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "You don't pull punches, do you? My daughter's life is in danger because of your world. I deserve the truth." Adrien was silent for a long moment. Then he set down his glass and pulled out the photograph he'd hidden. He slid it across the table. It showed a beautiful woman with warm eyes and dark hair, laughing at something off camera. Beside her was a younger Adrien, his arm around her waist, actually smiling. "Isabella," he said softly. "My wife. Eli's mother. She's beautiful. She was everything I wasn't. Good.
Kind.
She ran a charity for abused children, got them out of bad homes, gave them second chances." Adrien's voice cracked. "She was the only good thing in my life. And I destroyed her."
How?
By being who I am, he stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Victor knew the only way to hurt me was through her. 3 years ago, she was driving home from one of her charity events. Victor's men ran her off the road. Made it look like an accident, brake failure, they said. By the time I got to the hospital. He stopped, his hands clenched into fists. Eli was there, Adrien continued.
He saw the blood.
Heard the doctors say she wouldn't make it. And he heard me. His voice broke completely. He heard me on the phone, screaming at my men to find who did this, saying I'd kill everyone responsible. A 8-year-old boy heard his father promise murder. Nora felt something shift inside her chest. He thought you meant you'd killed her. I never got the chance to explain. After the funeral, Eli stopped talking to me.
Stopped looking at me.
He was terrified and I didn't know how to fix it. So I let him pull away. Told myself it was better if he hated me than if he understood what I really am. A father trying to protect his son, Nora said quietly. Adrien turned, surprise flickering across his face. I'm a criminal, Ms. Bennett. I've done terrible things. Don't romanticize what I am. I'm not. Nora stood, moving closer. But Eli needs to know the truth. He's been carrying this guilt, thinking his father is a monster. I am a monster. Then be a monster who tells his son he loved his mother. Nora's voice rose. Be a monster who stops hiding behind closed doors and actually talks to him. They stood inches apart, the air between them crackling with tension. Adrien's carefully controlled mask had slipped, and underneath she saw a man drowning in regret. He won't listen to me, Adrien said hoarsely. Then make him listen. Before Adrien could respond, an alarm pierced the night. Red lights flashed throughout the house. Adrien's phone buzzed frantically. What's happening? Nora demanded. One of the bodyguards burst into the library. Sir, we have a breach. South perimeter. Multiple contacts. Adrien's face went hard. Get them to the panic room.
Now.
Adrien. Go. He was already moving, pulling a gun from a drawer in his desk. Keep my son safe, Ms. Bennett. Please. Nora ran. She found Lily and Eli in the hallway, one of the guards ushering them toward a reinforced door. She turned to find Adrien emerging from the smoke, his face covered in soot. Their eyes met, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. We get her back, Nora said, her voice deadly calm. Whatever it takes. Adrien nodded once. Whatever it takes. The panic room became a war room. Adrien's men spread blueprints across the table, layouts of warehouses, dockyards, abandoned factories. Every property Victor owned or had connections to. Nora stood among these hardened criminals, her fear transformed into something cold and sharp. They'll expect us to wait for a ransom call, Adrien said, his finger tracing a route on the map. That gives us maybe 2 hours before they move her. How do you know they won't? Nora couldn't finish the sentence. Adrien looked at her, and for once, his eyes weren't cold. Victor wants me to suffer. Dead hostages end the game too quickly. He'll keep her alive to make me desperate. I'm already desperate. Good. Adrien's jaw tightened. Desperate people fight harder. One of his men, Marcus, the tall one who'd saved them in the alley, pointed to a location on the map. We intercepted radio chatter. Code words match Victor's crew. Old shipping yard, Pier 19. Abandoned since 2020 inch. It's a trap, another guard said. Of course it's a trap. Adrien was already loading weapons. But they have the girl. We don't have a choice. Nora stepped forward. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. She's my daughter. And you'd be a liability. You don't know how to fight, how to shoot. Then teach me. Nora grabbed his arm, forcing him to look at her. I'm not sitting here doing nothing while my baby is out there. You want to tell me no?
Try it.
I'll follow you anyway. Adrien stared at her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he handed her a gun. It's loaded. Safety's here. Point and squeeze. Don't hesitate, his eyes bored into hers. In that warehouse, everyone who isn't us is a target. Can you do that? Nora thought of Lily's laugh, her sticky hands, the way she sang made-up songs in the bathtub. "Yes," she said. "I can do that." The shipping yard was a graveyard of rusted containers and broken dreams. The moon hung low, casting long shadows across oil-stained concrete. Adrien's team moved like ghosts, spreading out, each man taking position. Nora crouched behind a container with Adrien and Eli, who had refused to stay behind, his jaw set with determination that reminded her painfully of his father. "2 guards at the main entrance," Marcus whispered through the radio. 3 more on the catwalks. Movement inside, looks like 5, maybe 6 more. Adrien calculated silently. "We need a distraction. Something to pull them away from the hostage." "I'll do it," Eli said suddenly.
No.
"They want me, not Lily." Eli's voice was steady, too steady for an 8-year-old. "If they see me, they'll chase me. Your men can get Lily out while they're distracted." "Elias, you said Mom died because of your world. Don't let Lily die too." Eli's eyes, his father's eyes, were hard with resolve. "Please, Dad, let me help." The word hung in the air.
Dad.
The first time Eli had called him that since Isabella's death. Adrien's face cracked. He pulled his son close, pressing his forehead against Eli's. "You run fast. You don't stop. You get to Marcus, understand? No heroics."
Ellie not dead.
Nora watched this moment between father and son and felt something break and rebuild in her chest. The plan worked too well. Eli appeared at the far end of the yard, shouting, throwing rocks at the containers. Victor's men poured out like ants, shouting in Russian, giving chase. Adrien and Nora slipped inside through a side entrance. The warehouse was a maze of crates and shadows. Nora's heart hammered so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. They moved deeper, following the sound of voices. Then she heard it, Lily crying. Nora nearly bolted, but Adrien grabbed her arm.
Slow.
Careful. They peered around a crate. Lily sat in the center of a cleared space, tied to a chair, tears streaming down her face. 2 men guarded her, guns drawn. And standing over her, smoking a cigarette, was a man in an expensive coat with a cruel smile.
Victor Leoni.
"She's a pretty one," Victor said in accented English. "Shame about what happens to children caught in crossfire, no?" Rage flooded Nora's veins. She raised her gun, but Adrien stopped her. "1 shot. They'll kill her before you take the second," he whispered. "Wait for my signal." But Nora saw the way Victor was looking at Lily, like she was already dead. Like this was all just entertainment. She couldn't wait. "Hey!" Nora stepped out from behind the crate, gun raised. "Let her go." Everything happened at once. Victor's men spun toward her. Adrien cursed and opened fire. Glass shattered. Someone screamed. Nora pulled the trigger, once, twice, not aiming, just firing. One of Victor's men went down. She'd shot someone. Actually shot someone. But there was no time to process it. Adrien was moving, taking out the second guard with brutal efficiency. Victor grabbed Lily, using her as a shield, backing toward a side door. "Drop it, Moretti, or the girl dies." Adrien froze, gun aimed, face carved from stone. "You wanted to see me suffer?" Adrien's voice was deadly calm. "Here I am. Let the children go. This is between us."
Victor left.
"You think I want a quick death for you?"
No, no.
"I want you to live knowing you couldn't save them. Just like I lived knowing I couldn't save my brother from." A shot rang out. Victor stumbled, blood blooming on his shoulder. He dropped his gun, releasing Lily. Nora stood there, her gun smoking, her hands shaking but her eyes clear. She'd saved her daughter. Adrien scooped up Lily while Nora kept her gun trained on Victor. The man clutched his wound, rage and disbelief warring on his face. "You'll pay for this," Victor snarled. "All of you." "I don't think so." Adrien's gun was pointed at Victor's head. His finger tightened on the trigger. And then Eli's voice cut through the darkness. "Dad, don't." The boy stood in the doorway, tears streaming down his face. Please don't kill him.
Please.
I don't want another monster for father. Adrien's hand trembled. The gun stayed raised. And the whole world held its breath. Time stopped. Adrien stood frozen, gun aimed at Victor's head, his finger on the trigger. One squeeze. That's all it would take. One bullet to end the man who destroyed his family, who'd killed Isabella, who'd terrorized his son. Victor laughed through his pain. Do it, Moretti. Show your boy what you really are. Adrien, Nora whispered, still holding Lily tight. Don't. But it was Eli who broke through. The boy walked forward slowly, his small frame trembling, but his eyes locked on his father. When Mom died, you promised me you'd find who did it. You said you'd make them pay, his voice cracked. I thought that meant you'd killed her. I thought you were the monster. Adrien's jaw clenched, but he didn't lower the gun. But you weren't, Eli continued, tears streaming freely now. Victor was. He's the monster. And if you kill him, the boy's voice dropped to a whisper, you'll become what I was afraid you were. Please, Dad. I just got you back. Don't leave me again. The gun shook in Adrien's hand. Every instinct, every year of violence and survival, screamed at him to pull the trigger. Victor had taken everything. He deserved to die. The world would be better without him. But Eli's eyes, Isabella's eyes, were begging him to be different, to be better. Adrien lowered the gun. Get up, he said to Victor, his voice hollow. You're going to the police. You're going to confess to everything. Isabella's murder, the kidnappings, all of it.
Victor spat blood.
You're weak, Moretti. Your father would be ashamed. My father was a monster too. Adrien's eyes were dead. I'm done being him. He nodded to Marcus, who hauled Victor to his feet. As they dragged the wounded man away, Victor's laugh echoed through the warehouse. You think mercy makes you noble? You just signed your death warrant, Adrien. Your allies will see this as weakness. By tomorrow, you'll have nothing. Adrien didn't respond. He just holstered his gun and knelt in front of his son. I'm sorry, he whispered, pulling Eli into his arms. I'm sorry for everything. For not explaining about your mother. For the life I gave you. For all of it. Eli clung to him, sobbing into his father's shoulder. I missed you, Dad. I missed you too, son. Nora watched them, Lily heavy in her arms, and felt something shift in her understanding of the world. Maybe people weren't simply good or evil. Maybe they were just broken, trying to piece themselves back together. Victor was right. Within 48 hours, Adrien's empire began to crumble. His allies, men who'd respected him through decades of ruthless decisions, saw his mercy as betrayal. In their world, you didn't spare your enemies. You buried them. 3 of his key lieutenants defected to rival families. 2 of his legitimate businesses were raided by the FBI. Someone had leaked information. His accounts were frozen. His properties seized. Nora watched it happen from the safe house. Adrien took each call with the same grim acceptance, like he'd known this was coming. Like he'd made his choice and was willing to pay the price. You have to fight back, Marcus urged during one heated conversation. Sir, they're dismantling everything you built. Let them. Adrien's voice was tired. I'm done.
Done?
You can't just. I have my son back, Marcus. That's all that matters now. The bodyguard stared at him like he was speaking a foreign language. Then slowly he nodded. What do you need from me? Help me disappear. They left in the middle of the night. No fanfare, no goodbyes. Just Adrien, Eli, Nora, and Lily, packed into a single car with false documents and enough cash to start over. Marcus had arranged everything. A coastal town 300 miles north, small enough that no one asked questions, far enough that Adrien's enemies wouldn't think to look there. You don't have to come, Adrien had told Nora the night before. This isn't your fight anymore. Victor's in custody. You and Lily are safe. But Nora had looked at Eli, who'd finally started smiling again, who called her Nora in that soft voice that made her heart ache. And she'd looked at Adrien, this complicated, broken man who'd given up everything for his son. Where else would we go? She'd said simply. The coastal town was called Haven's Rest. Ironic, Nora thought, for people who'd never known rest. It was beautiful in a weathered way, fishing boats, salt air, buildings that had stood for 100 years. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone but minded their own business. Adrien rented a small house near the water. Nothing like his previous life, just 3 bedrooms, a kitchen that barely fit 4 people, and a view of the ocean. It's perfect, Eli said, already running toward the beach. Lily chased after him, laughing. Nora stood on the porch, watching the children play, and felt Adrien's presence beside her. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for not giving up on him. On us. Thank you for choosing him over revenge." They stood in comfortable silence, the ocean breeze carrying the salt and promise of something new. "What happens now?" Nora asked. Adrien smiled, a real smile, sad but genuine. "Now we figure out how to be normal. You think we can?" "No," he looked at her, and there was something in his eyes she hadn't seen before.
Hope.
"But I think we can try." Behind them, the children's laughter mixed with the sound of waves. And for the first time in years, the future didn't feel like a threat. It felt like possibility. 4 months later, Nora wiped down the counter of her cafe, watching the morning sun paint golden streaks across the ocean. Nora's kitchen wasn't fancy. Just 12 tables, a chalkboard menu, and coffee that locals swore was the best in Haven's Rest. But it was hers. The bell above the door chimed. "Morning, Mrs. Chen," Nora called out, already pouring the woman's usual order. "Yes, Mrs. Chen." Her former neighbor had found them 2 months ago, not through any investigation, just a chance encounter at a farmer's market. She'd taken one look at Nora's face, asked no questions, and moved into the apartment above the cafe the following week. Some family, Nora had learned, you didn't choose. They just showed up. "Where are my grandchildren?" Mrs. Chen asked, settling into her favorite corner table. Nora smiled. Grandchildren. Lily and Eli had started calling her Nai Nai after she'd taught them to make dumplings.
Beach.
Adrien took them fishing. That man, Mrs. Chen shook her head, but her eyes were warm. From crime boss to fisherman. Life is strange. Strange didn't begin to cover it. Adrien had transformed in these months. He'd grown a beard, let the gray spread through his hair, wore flannel shirts and rubber boots. He worked on a fishing boat 6 days a week under the name Dan Morrison, and nobody suspected he'd once controlled half a city's underworld. But Nora saw the way he still checked over his shoulder. The way he kept a gun hidden in their house, despite promising himself he was done with violence. The past wasn't something you could simply shrug off. The bell chimed again. Lily burst in, soaking wet and grinning, Eli right behind her.
Mom.
"Nora, we caught 6 fish. Well, Adrien caught them, but I helped." "I'm sure you did, sweetheart." Nora bent down, letting Lily wrap sandy arms around her neck. Eli hung back, quieter as always, but his eyes were different now. Lighter. He caught Nora's gaze and smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. Adrien entered last, carrying a cooler of fish, looking more tired than dangerous. He met Nora's eyes across the cafe, and something passed between them. Something that had been building for months, through late-night conversations, through teaching Eli to ride a bike, through the way he'd held her when she'd broken down crying one night, overwhelmed by how much her life had changed. "I'll clean these out back," Adrien said, his voice rough. "I'll help," Nora found herself saying. Mrs. Chen took the kids to pick out pastries, giving the adults privacy they hadn't asked for, but somehow needed. Out back, behind the cafe where the ocean breeze carried the scent of salt and fish, Nora and Adrien worked in comfortable silence. He scaled the fish with practiced hands while she rinsed them. "You're good at this," Nora observed. "I'm good at a lot of things I never wanted to be good at," Adrien paused. "But this I don't mind." "No regrets." "About leaving that life?" He looked at her fully. "Not for a second." About dragging you into it? Every day. You didn't drag me anywhere. I chose this.
Why?
The question was quiet, vulnerable. You could have walked away a dozen times. Started over somewhere else. Why stay? Nora set down the fish she'd been holding. Because Eli needs me. Lily needs him. And I think she hesitated, then pushed forward. I think maybe we all need each other. Adrien's hands stilled. Nora. I'm not asking for anything, she said quickly. I just wanted you to know that this, whatever this is, it's enough. It's more than enough. He reached out, his wet hand finding hers, and for a moment they just stood there, two broken people who'd found something like peace. The moment shattered when Eli called out.
Nora.
Someone's here for Adrien. They exchanged a look, worry, fear, the old instincts kicking in. They walked back into the cafe to find a man in a postal uniform holding a large envelope. Package for Dan Morrison. Need a signature. Adrien signed with his false name, his shoulders tight. The postman left. What is it? Nora asked. Adrien opened the envelope carefully, like it might explode. Inside was a single photograph and a handwritten note. The photograph showed Victor Leone, alive, free, standing outside a courthouse with his lawyer. He was smiling. The note read, "You should have killed me when you had the chance. The past never stays buried. See you soon. V." Adrien's face went pale. His hands trembled. Eli saw the photo and went rigid. He escaped. I don't know, Adrien's voice was hollow. But he's out there. Nora felt the fear creeping back, the safety they'd built dissolving like sand. But then she looked at Lily and Eli, standing together, holding hands. She looked at Mrs. Chun, who'd already moved to lock the cafe door. She looked at Adrien, who was staring at the photo like it was his death sentence. And she made a choice. So he's coming, Nora said, her voice steady. Then we face him. Together. Adrien's eyes snapped to hers. Nora. We're a family now, she took his hand, squeezing tight. Whatever happens, we face it as a family.
Ellie nodded, stepping closer. She's right, Dad.
We don't run anymore. Lily, not fully understanding but feeling the tension, grabbed both their hands. We stick together. Like Mr. Hoppy says. Adrien looked at each of them, this strange, impossible family he'd never meant to have. Then slowly he nodded. Together, he said. Outside, storm clouds gathered on the horizon. But inside Nora's kitchen, surrounded by the smell of coffee and fresh pastries, 5 people stood united. The past was coming. But they would face it, not as criminals or victims or strangers. As family. The end.